Hello and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you stories that matter to you from all across the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, we shed light on the issues that shape our world. I'm Joshua Barnes, live from the Firstpost studios. Let's begin with the top headlines. French President Emmanuel Macron urges Europe to increase pressure on Russia, warning that drone violations European skies can be destroyed. The remarks follow recent Russian drone intrusions. Violent protests in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir continue for a third day as protesters clash with security forces, pushing the death toll to at least 12. The protesters seek structural reforms with political and economic rights. UK police report a stabbing outside of a synagogue in Manchester that has claimed at least 2 lives. Officers say that the suspect has also been shot and is believed to have died. 2 Delta Airlines subsidiary planes collide while taxiing at New York's LaGuardia Airport. This was confirmed by the American air carrier, adding that a crew member sustained a minor injury during the incident. And the United Nations says gang violence in Haiti has killed more than 16,000 people since 2021, warning that the worst may yet to come. We start with some updates from India. New Delhi has once again exposed and slammed Islamabad's hypocrisy at the United Nations Human Rights Council, raising persecution of minorities in Pakistan. The remarks came after Pakistan launched deadly airstrikes on its own soil in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. The Indian diplomat at the UNHRC said it is deeply ironic that a country with a record of minority persecution can lecture others on human rights. New Delhi also called out Pakistan for misusing the global body to spread false claims against India. The remarks were made during the 34th meeting of the 60th session of the UNHRC in Geneva.
I find it deeply ironic that a country with one of the world's worst human rights records seeks to lecture others. Their attempt to misuse this forum with fabricated allegations against India only expose their hypocrisy. Instead of making baseless propaganda, they should confront the rampant state-sponsored persecution and systematic discrimination against their own religious and ethnic minorities.
At least 23 civilians, including women and children, were killed in an airstrike in Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province on the 22nd of September. Pakistani JF-17 fighter jets dropped 8 LS-6 bombs on a village located in the Tira Valley. The Shahbaz Sharif government is yet to break its silence on the incident. Citing the attack, the Indian diplomat highlighted New Delhi's long-standing concerns about Islamabad's treatment of its minorities and failure to address domestic human rights challenges. The Indian envoy also called out Pakistan's long-standing support for terrorism. India was not the only one to raise concerns over Pakistan's treatment of its minorities. Josh Bowes, an international geopolitical researcher, highlighted the atrocities being faced by the Baloch people. He further raised how Pakistan is at the 158th position on the World Press Freedom Index.
The USC IRF Religious Freedom Report for 2025 states that over 700 individuals were in prison for blasphemy charges, with a 300% increase from the last year. The Baloch National Movement's human rights body documented 785 enforced disappearances and 121 killings in the first half of 2025 alone. The Pashtun National Jirga, Assembly of Pashtun Leaders, said that in 2025, 4,000 Pashtun are still missing.
The persecution of minorities in Pakistan has been going on for decades. More recently, in August of 2023, a mob vandalised and torched at least 17 churches after 2 Christians were accused of blasphemy. The violent mob also burnt nearly 100 homes belonging to the Christian community. Earlier, multiple reports of abduction and forced conversion of girls from minority sects had surfaced. Local reports in Pakistan have repeatedly documented such cases of coerced conversions. The recent remarks of the Indian envoy followed an earlier rebuttal by India at the UNGA. The Indian diplomats had criticised Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's absurd theatrics over glorifying terrorism. But Pakistan refuses to back down on its propaganda. It continues to propagate lies on global platforms, despite being exposed multiple times. Moving on, and America has woken up to its first government shutdown since 2018. As of the 2nd of October, US Congress has failed to approve the funding needed to keep the federal government running. Well, the results: suspension of non-essential services and furloughs for hundreds of thousands of federal employees. But that's not all. The impact of the shutdown is expected to be felt far and beyond the present moment. The already contentious H-1B visa program, a lifeline for the US tech sector to bring in skilled talent from abroad, especially India, is now in the crossfire. That's because every H-1B petition starts with a labour condition application, also known as LCA, that has to be certified by the US Department of Labour. But the Labour Department relies directly on congressional funding. With the shutdown in place, it's gone dark, and that creates a bottleneck. No certified LCA means no new H-1B applications, no employer transfers, and no changes in visa status. In short, if an H-1B applicant's LCA was not approved before October the 2nd, they will now have to wait until the end of the current federal shutdown, however long it lasts. In 2024, around 71% of H-1B visa holders in the US were Indians. The current freeze makes Indians waiting for an H-1B visa among the most vulnerable. The ongoing federal shutdown also effectively seizes the processing of green card applications. The wait times for lawful permanent resident cards or green cards for immigrants awaiting US citizenship already range from months to potentially decades. Over 1 million Indians are currently stuck in the green card backlog. Some face a wait time that, on paper, could run into more than a century. With a shutdown in place, that road to US citizenship just became even bumpier. The US Embassy in India says scheduled visa and passport services will continue as the situation permits, but it has stopped regular updates on its X account, a reminder that even routine communication is now being impacted. In previous shutdowns, consulates have reduced hours or frozen applications except for urgent cases. The timing makes this even tougher. Just weeks ago, President Trump hiked the H-1B visa fee for new applicants to $100,000, up from an initial payment of just $215. His administration has also moved to scrap the lottery system, pushing instead for wage-based selection, which would give priority to higher salaried workers. Other critical systems are also taking a hit. The E-Verify program used by employers to check if their new hires are legally eligible to work is now offline. So employers will have to fall back on manual document checks, adding further delays to the hiring process. Immigration courts too will feel the pressure. Hearings for detained migrants will continue, but non-detained cases are being shelved. Back in 2019, the shutdown delayed nearly 94,000 hearings, with a backlog of over 3.4 million cases today. This pause could be far more damaging. The US shutdown may only be a few hours old as of today, but its impact is already rippling. From likely furloughed federal employees in Washington to Indian tech workers waiting on their H-1B paperwork, for now, there's no clarity on how long this stalemate will last. And if history is any guide, the longer this shutdown lasts, the deeper the backlog gets, and the bigger the hit will be to both US institutions and the global talent that powers them. Moving on, Japan is bracing for a key political moment this weekend as the ruling Liberal Democratic Party is set to choose its next leader and likely the country's next Prime Minister after Shigeru Ishiba's resignation last month. But before that, anti-immigrant protests are intensifying around Tokyo. Most recently, crowds gathered outside a major train station near the Japanese capital to cheer Sohei Kamiya, leader of the far-right Sunsito party, which recently won several seats in the upper house election. Kamiya rallies against immigration, suggesting the foreign workers undermine Japan's economy and social fabric. But not far away, rival protesters marched with placards accusing the party of pushing divisive and dangerous rhetoric that threatens Japan's social cohesion. Despite holding only a handful of seats, Sansito's Japan First message is setting the tone of an immigration debate. Listen in.
Sansito gains its popularity because we say the obvious in an obvious way. Let's do the politics that people are asking for. That is what I call Japanese first. The total opposite to Japanese first is globalism first. Caring too much for what has been decided somewhere out there and how foreign companies will benefit has brought the decline in economics and population in Japan, which lead to the foreign workers' crisis.
The Sansito party leader insists Japan's citizens should not come second to foreign workers. His rhetoric resonates with supporters frustrated by rising prices and stagnant wages.
Foreigners who have come to Japan recently have no respect for the country, but came as cheap labor. I don't believe they bring any good to Japan, and that's why I agree to most of the things Kamiya says. I support him and the party.
Critics warn that the far-right leader is amplifying stereotypes of foreigners as cheap labour, unwilling to learn Japanese or even prone to crime.
There is an image of foreigners in Japan which is getting fixated cheap labor, no interest in learning the language, and their children drop out from school. Once they create their own community, it leads to a rise in crime rates. Via internet and Sansito, that message get amplified, leaving no one with positive images of foreigners.
The protests and the counter-protests have pushed immigration to the forefront of Japan's politics. Even the ruling Liberal Democrat Party, long seen as pro-business and pro-tourism, is now echoing calls for tougher rules on foreign workers. However, Japan faces a hard reality: a rapidly ageing population and a shrinking workforce. Experts warn Japan may need up to 7 million foreign workers by 2040, 3 times the current number, just to keep its economy afloat. Now, on October the 4th, the ruling LDP will vote for a new leader to replace outgoing Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, who stepped down after repeated electoral setbacks. But all contenders of the top seats race face the same challenge: how to respond to Japan's growing anti-immigrant sentiment while keeping the economy running. Among the 5 contenders, 3 have emerged as frontrunners. Their positions on foreign workers could shape Japan's path going forward. First in the list is Shinjiro Koizumi, nicknamed the Prince. He is the 44-year-old son of a former prime minister, photogenic and reform-minded, seen as inexperienced but popular with the public. The second frontrunner is Sane Takaichi. She is called the Nationalist. The 64-year-old hardline conservative is aligned with Shinzo Abe's legacy. Known for tough stances on China, defence and foreign property purchases, she could become Japan's first female prime minister. And then there is Yoshimasa Hayashi, popular as the Beetle Maniac. The Harvard-educated moderate brings decades of ministerial experience and is seen as a steady, reliable force. The former foreign minister is also a devoted fan of the Beatles and is often seen weaving references to the legendary band into his politics and even diplomacy. Now, whoever wins on Saturday will inherit a nation at a crossroads. A Japan caught between economic necessity and nationalist pressure over foreign population. Finally, shifting focus to the Philippines, where a flood control project scandal is in the spotlight. After a flood-causing monsoon, the country is in the middle of what is typically referred to as the typhoon season. In recent weeks, Super Typhoon Regasa and Typhoon Bualoy have killed dozens in the Southeast Asian nation. And now, with floodwaters impacting millions, the Philippine Senate is in full swing with a high-profile hearing about the flood control project scandal. New revelations are emerging about the face of this corruption scandal. The Discaya couple, whose companies allegedly secured over 400 flood control contracts worth more than $1.6 billion between 2022 and 2024. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has put the issue front and centre, warning that so-called ghost projects have drained billions of dollars meant for vulnerable communities. Climate activist body Greenpeace estimates some $17.6 billion may have been siphoned off from climate-related funds since 2023. At the centre of the scandal are Pacifico and Sarah Descaya. Once celebrated for their rags to riches story, the couple have now become the face of graft scandal in the country, with Filipino youngsters calling out their extravagant lifestyle on social media. The youth points out their companies secured hundreds of flood control contracts while Filipino villages remain unprotected. In the Senate hearing on October the 1st, investigators described the couple's operations as beyond imagination. Unlike other contractors restricted to regional limits, investigators added that Descaya's hustled their way into projects nationwide, often skirting competitive bidding rules. Probes are now digging back as far as 2016, the year the couple began to get big. Another bombshell from the hearing, the controversy is not just about flood control. Health Secretary Ted Herbosa confirmed that the Descaya's company was also behind several unfinished, also known as walkaway health centres. Lawmakers questioned why contractors were paid for facilities that never opened, suggesting a collusion between regional officials and builders. Meanwhile, the couple themselves have testified in congressional probes and are under protection as the Department of Justice decides whether they can be named as state witnesses. Their testimonies have already put lawmakers and public works under official scanner, with dozens expected to be called for questioning next. The scale is staggering. Senator Sherwin Gatchalian revealed that 123 government contracts worth 11 billion pesos, or nearly $600 million, were left incomplete in 2024 alone. From dikes that collapsed to health centres that never treated a single patient, the Descayas have emerged as a common link. For a country perpetually battered by typhoons and floods, the revelations cut deep. Billions of pesos allocated for climate resilience and basic public services have been diverted, leaving communities more vulnerable than ever. And as the Senate hearing widens, the question looms: will the Descaya case finally mark a turning point in the Philippines' long history of scandals? That is all we have on the show today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Until then, thanks for watching.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT.